Hi, everyone. I'm Don Wilson from the RELIC department. Um, just a quick question. How many of you have ever been to the RELIC department? That's good. Glad we're getting people into the programs from it. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 1950 US Census, which we call it the first snapshot of post-war America. The US Census is taken every 10 years, as you probably know. It's provided for in the US Constitution. It's to count our population, and this allows us to apportion Congress so that each member represents the same number of citizens all across the United States. It also provides important statistical data used by the government and by private agencies as well as individuals. It was the first census taken since World War II. Census records are important sources for family history. They tell us details about each person living at that time, a family snapshot. US Census data is confidential for 72 years. This is set out by Congress, and that's why we have to wait to see it. And April 1st of this year, 2022 is exactly 72 years since this census was taken. Now we're lucky in a sense because if you were wanting to see the British census, they don't allow it to be seen by the public until 100 years after it was taken. And they're just now celebrating the fact that they can see the 1921 census of Britain. Canada was on the same track as Britain, but somehow the last census they got, I think they only had to wait 92 years. Okay, the 1950 census was open to the public on April 1st, 2022, right on schedule. It will not be completely indexed immediately. That's going to be a handicap for you trying to find your relatives in the census. But there are some finding aids out there that will help in the meantime. Now, this is a very faint image of what the 1950 census form looks like. And if you've been online with any of the sites, or if you've gone to the National Archives website, you can see images of the census form. What is in the census form? What information is found on the form? The handout that I gave you has a list of the categories of information. Let me run through them real quickly. It shows the enumeration district. An enumeration district covers an area that one census worker uses. So if you find that your family is in a particular census enumeration district, you can figure that one man or woman covered the whole territory of that district, going house to house. The form, they put down the house number, they put down the street name, which shows the route taken by the census taker, and it shows the name of each person in each household. This is similar to what had been done in every census every 10 years since 1850. It shows the relationship of each person to the head of the household. It shows race and sex. It shows their age on their last birthday. If they're under age 1, it gives the month of birth. The 1950 census shows marital status, such as married, widowed, divorced. It even says whether they're separated or not, and if they're never married. And it gives details about occupation and work. These are all the categories that everybody on the census is checked off. Now, in order to keep the census questions as few as possible, speed it along, they have special questions at the bottom of the form, and 6 persons on each page, spread out evenly through that page, get the following questions. Was he, meaning he or she, living in the same house a year ago? Was he living on a farm a year ago? Identify the county or state or country where he was living a year ago. In what country were his father and mother born? What is the highest grade of school attended? Was he attending school since February of this year? And then the following questions are for persons over the age of 14. How many weeks have you been looking for work? How many weeks were you working last year? How much money did he earn last year in wages, or if he owned his own business, or as investments? How much did his relatives in this house earn last year? Did he serve in the armed forces, World War I, World War II, or other? You'll notice some of these questions are ones that were also on previous census years, but in 1950 they are taken as sample questions rather than everybody getting them. And then, if your relative was lucky enough to end up on line 26 of the census page, he gets several additional questions in addition to all the questions we've seen on the previous page. You need to describe the work he did in his previous job. Has this person been married more than once? How many years has it been since this person was last married or widowed or divorced or separated? And if female, how many children has she given birth to? All questions that might be of interest to people doing family history. Oh, and by the way, because of the way the questions are spread out on the form, about every 5 or 6 lines is one of those special people. Then many families or many households will have somebody in the household who has to answer at least some of those questions. Okay, where can you see the census now? Then I give you a list of the sites that are supposed to have access to the 1950 census. The National Archives, which of course owns, controls the original census records. Family Search, the website of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They've been very active in collecting genealogical data and indexing records. Ancestry, the website that has one of the strongest collections of genealogical records in the world. And Heritage Quest, which is a site you can access for free from our library's website. and it is a subset of records on Ancestry. It's owned by the Ancestry company. And then finally, MyHeritage, which is a company that is kind of collecting information at a great rate. They've got a lot of customers. Their collection of data is not quite as strong as Ancestry, but they are trying. Okay, we'll start with the National Archives. The National Archives has loaded all 1950 census schedules. So if you go to their website, you'll see them. They have computer-generated indexes, which are now available, but the computer-generated index, which they call mechanical indexing, they have not been checked for accuracy yet. They are asking for volunteer help from the public to work on this, but so far they have opened everything up and you can look at it and search it the way it is. If you know the state or locality of residence, they may quickly find your family. National Archives. That's number one. This is an image of their page, the main page going into Census Records. And where the little blue arrow is on the left-hand side, that shows you where their link is to the 1950 census. It's a little bit hidden there. But if you click on that, it takes you to this page. Welcome to the official 1950 census website. And then the button at the lower left says Begin Search. And if you click that, you'll see a search screen, and it will allow you to put in a state, a county, the name of a person, and whatever it has in this database already, it will show you. For example, I was looking for my family in Madison County, Indiana. That's where we were in 1950. And so I put in Indiana, Madison County, and I put in my father's name, Cecil Wilson. And lo and behold, the first collection of machine learning indexing that came up included my father's name. You'll see where the arrow is there. It says Wilson, and then followed by Cecil, and then that's followed by Betty, and then Donald, which is me, and then Susan, which is my sister. Okay, so this shows you, and this was almost immediately. I didn't have to wait, or I didn't have to browse, I didn't have to hunt. It was right there. You all should be so lucky, but this was a fluke, really. Going to the next screen, it shows the image of that census page, which shows you the street address where I grew up, and there's the four of us in the household, and it shows some of our near neighbors that I remember from my childhood. I was, as you can see there, I was 6 years old at the time this census was taken. So this is the first time, this is exciting, the first time I've seen my own name on the census record. Okay, let's go on to Family Search. Family Search has been plugging the 1950 census as well. But they haven't shown very much so far. They are promoting the use of crowdsourcing to index the 1950 census. And they're being very careful about what they let out. I did some indexing on their site. It's very easy to do it. You don't have to do any big application. I already have an account with Family Search, so I just signed in, and there was a button on one of the pages that said, "Would you like to index?" Oh, and right down here on this page it says, "Start now." And you hit that button, and the next thing you know, they have a page of text from the, you see lines of writing from the census, and then you see next to it the words that the machine learning, the artificial intelligence has read it, and then you just look and compare the two words and see if you agree. Is that what it says? And if you don't agree, you can change the spelling. You can make corrections on it. And I did that. I looked at about 100 words to see how it was going, and most of the time, the artificial intelligence read the words right, especially if the words were printed. But even handwritten words they were able to make out. So that's encouraging. 10 years ago, when the 1940 census came out, we didn't have access to this artificial intelligence. So we weren't able to do this at that time. Anyone can take part in this project. And right now, as I say, volunteers are checking and correcting the readings. As of yesterday, 2 states have been completed, Utah and Idaho. They're the ones in the dark shade of whatever color that is. I'm colorblind. And then Oregon and Arizona are mostly done, and Florida and New Mexico are underway. I did some indexing for Florida. The rest of the country is going to have to wait a little while. But, my understanding is that Family Search will release the indexes as soon as the state is completed, but they're not planning to do it before the completion of the work in each state. Okay. Now to Ancestry. Ancestry, of course, has one of the best census indexing programs in the US. One of the easiest to use, and they have a page for the 1950 census set up already, and you can go there and put in whatever you want to search for on the 1950 census, but you're probably not going to find anything because they have not yet finished any state or anything that they've been willing to release. I don't know when Ancestry is going to release any indexing for this census. I think it's going to have to be either some states completed. I have a feeling they're trying to do states that Family Search is not doing, or at least do them first. Anyway, I tried looking up my family in this index and got no hits at all. But what they do have is something called the 1950 Census District Finder experience. What it does is it will allow you to find the enumeration district where your family was living if you know the address of the house where they lived, or if you can describe it in some way that will work on here. Generally, the street address is the easiest way. So I put in the address where we lived in 1950, 2704 Walton Street, Anderson in Madison County, Indiana, and then hit the search button. And what happened was it gave me an enumeration district, 48-58, and it gave a map right alongside it. And you can see there, it's the southwest section of Anderson, where the 4858 lies. Okay, once you have that enumeration district, you can click on the district number here under details, and it will give you the first page of the census records for that district. And depending on what your patience is, you can browse through the whole district. In the case of District 48-58, it has 53 pages, and so 53 pages is not excessive if you're trying to find somebody and you have waited this long to see the information. 53 pages you can get through in not too long a time, especially since you can look down the left-hand side of the page to see what street the census taker is walking on that page. And so if you're looking for Walton Street, you scroll down through the pages until you get to Walton Street, and hopefully you'll find the people you're looking for. In my case, when I used this technique, I quickly found my grandparents, who lived right across the street from us at that time. And next door to my grandparents was my grandfather's sister and her husband. And what I didn't realize, though, was that my great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother, was living with the great aunt. And so we have a whole grouping of immediate family members found very quickly. And as I looked up and down the street, I was reminded of these people that I knew growing up. Our next door neighbor, Mr. and Mrs. Barnes, and their daughter Carol Sue, and then various other people in the neighborhood. And right across the street, my earliest buddy, Jimmy Gibson, who was living with his parents and his two brothers at that time. Now, Heritage Quest. Heritage Quest is a free service that you can see if you go to the library's digital library. And it is owned by Ancestry, and it has a number of features that are also on Ancestry, including the census records. Whereas Ancestry, you either have to buy a subscription or come to the library to use it, but Heritage Quest you can use from home. They have a page that is supposed to link you to the 1950 census and indexing to it, but if you go to it, what you see is this page. I don't know what they mean by this, but anyway, this is a page that shows that they're not really ready to release the 1950 census on this website. Okay. Finally, we've got MyHeritage, which, as I say, is a website unto itself. And they're advertising the 1950 United States Federal Census. And they're giving some statistics about it and some discussion of how important it is and that they will have it up. They are planning to have it all indexed by the end of June. But right now they don't have anything online for it. So you can discount Heritage Quest and MyHeritage if you're looking for the census. One thing that MyHeritage does is they imply that they're using Steve Morse's one-step tools for the 1950 census. And I checked out Steve Morse's webpage, and as far as I can tell, what he is doing is he is put together a finding aid for discovering the enumeration district that you may be looking for. But Ancestry's search engine for that is much easier to use. For Steve Morse's, you have to know where your family's house was within a certain radius, what streets are around it, not just the street they lived on, but the whole neighborhood. So that's quite a bit more complicated than what you do on Ancestry. So, in summary, I want to, give you the steps I would take if I'm looking for anybody on the 1950 census. Number one, I would start with the National Archives website, put in a name and a location if you know it, and hope that the machine reading is accurate. I mean, I've tried a number of names. Unusual names are easier to find than common names. In other words, if you're looking for a John Smith, forget it. What you're going to, well, especially if you don't know the city. If you know the city, then you got a chance. But if you're looking for a common name and you think you're in the United States someplace, but you're not sure where, then you're likely to get hundreds or thousands of people with the same name. And unless you know something about the person that will help pinpoint them, then that's probably not the way to go. But if you know the street address, the city, the town, the county, then the National Archive may very well get you to the place you want. Second step, if the first step doesn't help you or doesn't answer your question, go to the Ancestry Guide to enumeration districts and put in whatever address you have and see what you come up with there, and use that census district to try to find the person. In this method, you're going to have to browse the enumeration district for the names you want. But that's still quicker than just opening up the census and looking at a county and hoping you'll stumble onto the person. And number 4, something you can do to help speed things up, is volunteer to check the machine readings on Family Search. They must already have thousands of people working on this. I mean, that's why they're getting some states already completed indexing. So if you've got family in one of the states that Family Search has completed or is working on now, then you've got a good chance of seeing it completely indexed very shortly. And as I think I mentioned, the National Archives and MyHeritage also want volunteers, but looking at their site, I wasn't real clear if they really wanted volunteers or are they just saying they wanted volunteers, because I didn't see any way of doing it immediately. And I hope whichever method you use that you are successful. And I'm be happy to try to answer any questions or try to show you a demonstration on any of these if you want. Hi.
Who's typing in your words at the bottom of the screen?
Voice, it's by voice.
Is that artificial intelligence you mentioned earlier?
Isn't it just the voice?
Oh, you know what?
I shouldn't hold it.
Uh,
Maybe people can't see.
I didn't realize this was turned on, but it looks like, what do you call it?
We're ADA compliant.
Yeah, it's automatically typing what I'm saying. I didn't realize that.
Has that got a term?
Yeah, well, when you got it on TV, it's called
Closed captioning.
yeah, closed captioning. Yeah, yeah, it's repeating what I'm saying and
Absolutely.
anything it hears. Oops. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they keep throwing things into the software that we use, and we don't always realize that it's there until we're already using it. Yeah. Anybody have yes, Barbara?
What are the odds of the machine correctly indexing foreign sounding names? I have, for my husband, a family name Echeverria, and not even the census takers spelled it correctly, and they were Spanish-speaking census takers.
Well, the machine recognition is probably going to be using English pronunciation of whatever name they're looking at, or unless they've got a special reason for recognizing it as Spanish and trying to pronounce it that way. I mean, if you want, I can demonstrate. How's the name pronounced?
Echeverria, Echeverria.
Okay. All right, this is where we begin the search. And it gives all kinds of tips here too that you may find helpful. Okay. Well, we have someone named Emilio in Taos, New Mexico that pops up first, but let's look down below. All right. Okay, here's a name that looks like it, but the first name is Peter. This is in Erie County, New York. That's Amelia. Okay, what it does is I should have left the first name off, because what it does is it brings up either the first name or the last name, not necessarily both together.
Puerto Rico? Oh, wow.
Yeah, here's, you're right, here's somebody with that name.
But it actually picks it up, man.
Yeah, Echeverria. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the first name is Rodrigo. And then there's some other people in the household. Now, if you want to look at that, what you do is you hit the button that says population schedules, and that brings up the page. And then you look at it.
Oh, that's nice, they printed it, that's
Mhm.
great.
Well, many of I think the census takers were told to print. Whoops, well, it went out of it. But anyway, you get an idea there.
Yeah,
And here's another one. This one, another one in Puerto Rico. Another one in Puerto Rico, and another. Yeah. So, if your objective is to find as many people of this family as possible, this is a quick way to do it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How many of the territories, US territories, are included in the census?
Well, all of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if it's a territory that was, I mean, in 1950, Alaska and Hawaii were both territories.
Yes.
And so they're included, as well as the Virgin Islands and Samoa, Puerto Rico, of course.
Thank you.
Well, have you all figured out what you want to do with this now? No further questions. You know it all, right?
Yeah. Why did they do a 14-year age cutoff when asking school questions about schools? Do you know?
Well, 14, I think part of that was dealing with
Right.
jobs that under federal law, kids had to be at least 14 to be counted as part of the labor force. And as far as schools, I'm not, it may have been just a
Eighth grade.
convenience to put them in together.
Eighth grade,
8th grade?
8th grade.
both my mom and dad were fully educated at the 8th grade.
Yeah, well, that's about when my grandfather stopped school. No, actually, it wasn't the 8th grade. He was out by the 6th grade. Yeah, I don't know.
So the children were not required to go until they were at least
No.
16?
No, if you go back and look at the veterans records from World War II, the average education is 8th grade. And so, and that was, for that wave, for those groups, that was considered fully educated.
Yeah.
And to go finish high school was optional.
Yeah, I knew a lot of kids when I was going to school who dropped out at age 16, and
But
even then they may not have made it to high school.
yeah,
And joined the service and got trained in the service.
Right.
But eighth grade was considered the baseline of education, just like, the minimum to get a job is either a high school diploma or a GED, and at that point, 8th grade was the baseline.
Well, thank you for all being so patient and attentive. Please come back and see us when you need additional help with your family history research or whatever type of history research you're doing.